Hello again and welcome to Suds & Country. I'm Herb Sudson. On this show, I'm very honored to say I have Ronnie Milsap as my guest. Welcome to the show, sir.
Hey, thank you very much, Herb. It's a pleasure to be with you. Thanks.
My pleasure. Hey, Ronnie Milsap, I read that says a contemporary country artist of the first magnitude. You agree with that?
Whatever the Lord that may mean, I'm not exactly sure, but I'm certainly am a country-based artist, Herb. And as you know, I live in Nashville. I've been there quite some time, been making records at RCA for, I don't know, about close about 18 years, yes. I guess now.
Okay. Your album, Stranger Things Have Happened,
yes.
I read where it's a return to traditional country sound. What does that mean?
Well, I do a lot of different kinds of records. As you know, I love country music. That's probably what brought me to Nashville in the first place, is that my roots are in country. I grew up in the Smoky Mountains, and country music, bluegrass, gospel, all that is indigenous to that part of the South, and is really part of my heritage as a musician. But I'm studying classical music when I was in school, 10 years of formal training and playing in jazz bands and rock and roll bands and blues groups and you name it. I've kind of played a lot of different types of music, but my music has always had a base in country music. So from time to time, when I have the right songs, I do a more traditional country album, as is Stranger Things Have Happened.
You started, what was your first country music hit? Remember?
Well, yeah, I had the earlier hits. The first #1 hit that I had was in '74, a song called Pure Love.
Oh,
you might have heard that.
Oh, I played on my radio show.
Yeah, a song written by a good friend of mine, Eddie Rabbit, wrote the song.
I had him on the show too.
Yeah, and he's a great guy, and he was doing those great home demos that he recorded with his own home four-track recorder in his kitchen.
Yeah.
They brought me this song called Pure Love, and it had about 7 verses on it, and then producer and me working together at that time, we wound up using only one of the verses and just sang the chorus again a few times, put some fiddles and steel on that thing, and it first #1 record said in '74 when that came out. And according to which magazine you look at, whether it's R&R, Billboard, or Cashbox, or whatever, I've had around 35 #1 records since then. It's a lot of great luck, good luck has happened to me, and a lot of
talent.
A lot of wonderful people have helped me out too. You know,
talent is the word.
Well, I think you got to have a little of that in order to hang in there. But I think you certainly need a lot of things. It takes like you know, there are a lot of components to being able to maintain a career in the entertainment business today, because it is changing so much.
What inspired you to pursue a recording career right from the beginning?
Well, I've always, you know, from being a kid, and I was loved music, and ever since I could remember listening to music on the radio, and I could memorize the lyrics and the tunes, and I could play by ear long before I really knew what that was. I had perfect pitch, and I didn't have much training until I started in school in Raleigh, North Carolina. When I was 7 and 8, I started violin and piano, and started getting some training. But I've just always had a great love for, when I heard records on the radio and I heard about, you know, what kind of things that people hanging out and playing in clubs and playing shows together, and the electricity that happens with audiences and all, and from the very beginning, that's always been something that really has appealed to me. When I was in high school, and I wanted to pursue a career in music, Herb, and the teachers and instructors that I had at that time, they thought that if I pursued a career in music that I'd wind up out on the street somewhere. So they wanted me to do something more substantial in life. And
what about your scholarship to law school?
Yeah, so that's what happened. I wound up going to college because they said, hey, music's just not going to get it, guy. You're going to have to do something else. So I went on to college and thought about going to law school. I had a scholarship to go into law school. And I met a disc jockey down in Atlanta, and I used to hang out over at the radio station with him all the time. He flew me to New York And that was kind of the end of my college career. I decided not to go into law school after all, to pursue my first love, which has always been entertainment.
That's great. In the 60s, you recorded Let's Go Get Started. How far in the charts did that go?
Well, there's a song called Let's Go Get Stoned.
Stoned? I'm sorry, I can't read my handwriting.
That's fine, I couldn't either. No, but when I came to New York the first time with my disc jockey friend, I recorded a record. I never had it so good. The backside was Let's Go Get Stoned.
Oh, okay.
This record turned out to be a top 5 soul record at the time. It was my first introduction into the music business. And I met Ray Charles around then. I'd met him a couple of years before, but I went to a show and I got backstage to talk to him again. And he said, Ronnie, I really do like that B-side of your record, song called Let's Go Get Stoned. He said, I'm going to go record that. And I thought, well, if he does that, it probably takes some attention off of mine. And to make a long story short, I don't know how many we sold. We didn't sell too many, but I know he sold over 1 million with his.
No kidding. Whoa. That was an R&B song.
Yeah, it was my first introduction to a couple of writers, too, of Nick Ashford and Valerie Simpson, who went on to Motown to write a lot of big hits over there. But they were just getting started in New York, the same place where I was. They were writing for Scepter Records. At that time, their big artist was Dionne Warwick. And Chuck Jackson was there, and that was kind of my introduction into the music business.
Why did you go R&B if you were basically
I didn't know anybody in Nashville, Herb.
Okay.
If I'd known, Owen Bradley or Chet Atkins, or if I'd had any contacts in Nashville at all, perhaps I would have gone and maybe I'd have played with some band, or maybe I would have joined one of the shows up there and worked my way into it. But the people in Atlanta where I was, the folks in the music business there, and musicians, other entertainers, were very helpful to me. And the black entertainers were the most helpful. Folks like Jackie Wilson and Ben E. King and Inez and Charlie Fox and Ike and Tina Turner and the folks that I used to go watch play, and Jackie Wilson called you up on stage to sing with him. I mean, that's a hell of a thrill. And you tell me about it. And those guys, because they were so helpful to me, I really truly acquired a real love for rhythm and blues music, and I found out that in many ways it's parallel to country music because it's people music. It's about everyday situations, and the blues is pretty much similar in many ways to country because it talks, like the everyday person, and it tells the good and the bad and the whole story of what's going on in their lives. And and so in that way, it was easy for me to relate to that, because my love for country music, I found out the blues is about the same thing. It's just black folks' version of the same kind of stories, and so I became very close to that kind of music and acquired a real affection for it, is what I'm trying to say.
Well, you worked in those days with a lot of the top names, Little Anthony and the Imperials.
Yeah, I did. I started.
Martha and Mandela.
Yeah, this record took me out on the road, and I toured out there with Sam and Dave and Little Anthony and the Imperials, and like you said,
Smoky Robinson.
Smoky Robinson, I sure did. Great times. Bobby Blue Bland was always one of my favorite blues singers, and to have a chance to do shows with him was just unbelievable. It was just too fine.
When did you swing to the country sound?
Well, after I couldn't really get much of a career going. That first record was the biggest record that I had. I lived in Atlanta. My wife and I decided to move to Memphis. A record producer that I had met talked me into moving to Memphis, so I moved up there for a while. I was working in a club called TJ's, and was also playing in a recording studio, playing piano and keyboards for
sessions.
Yeah, for other artists on their records. I was a session player.
Yeah,
and worked a lot of that. Played the most memorable sessions of that time with the ones with Elvis Presley during '69 and '70.
Trade a few stories with us about Elvis.
Well, the thing that was really interesting to me is when I first met Elvis. It's just like I walked in and somebody said, Elvis, this is Ronnie Milsap, and he said, okay. It wasn't, hi, how you doing?
No.
Glad to have you here.
Sure.
Okay. And But I played on a big record at that time called Kentucky Rain.
Yes, sir.
And he wanted some thunder on it, and he asked me to play the, the piano down the low end, and I played on that. So every time I hear that on the record, it kind of takes me back to.
That's an Eddie Rabbitt song?
It sure is. Eddie Rabbitt and Dick Hurd.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's kind of interesting too. I cut a song called Smoky Mountain Rain.
Yes, you
in
did.
1980, when that song came along, I was playing at the piano, and all of a sudden I heard Elvis say, "Can I get a little bit of thunder over there on the piano?" And it came right back, and I used the same thunder on Smoky Mountain Rain I'd used on Kentucky Rain.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah. Hey, Christmas '72, you arrived in Nashville.
I sure did. Yeah.
What was your first job in Nashville?
I was working at Roger Miller's King of the Road Hotel. I'd brought a three-piece band with me from Memphis. We'd moved up to Nashville. I decided if I didn't make it in music in Nashville, I was going back to school somewhere. Maybe I'd go back to law school.
Yeah, but you sure made it.
Everything worked out real good. I was managed at that time by a gentleman who was managing Charlie Pride.
Yes, sir.
Jack Johnson was my manager. And things did start happening very quickly, and I was picked up by RCA, by Chet Atkins and Jerry Bradley at that time at RCA. And I've been there ever since.
What was your first song ever recorded in Nashville?
A thing called I Hate You, which is really is a song that says, "I love you so much, I wish I could hate you," which was really the idea of the song. But it's my first top 10 record. It was really a demo that we just went in the studio and recorded, and it was actually intended to solicit interest from other record labels and see who might be interested in signing me to a record label. Well, nobody would except folks over at RCA, and they decided to release that as the first record.
You recorded some Jim Reeves music too.
Yeah, I did. Jim Reeves is always a real favorite of mine.
Great.
And what a voice, and what an interpreter of songs. Good songwriter. I did a whole collection of his songs, whole album called Out Where the Bright Lights Are Glowing, which is the first few words in Four Walls. We had a song written called Out Where the Bright Lights Are Glowing, and picked 10 of songs, Jim's that I liked a lot, and put 2 new songs on there. It took me back to kind of a way too, Herb, that Am I Losing You was the only single out of that project. When I got my first guitar when I was 13 years old, I had some guitars before then, but a gentleman brought me one and gave it to me as a gift, a Jumbo Gibson guitar. I remember holding it and striking a big A chord and singing Am I Losing You, and I think when I did that project of Jim's, kind of took me back to that as well. But that was an interesting project. The album went gold. We only had 1 single out of it. It was great.
Wow. What made you how did it feel to record music of somebody so great as Jim Reeves?
Well,
it felt great.
It felt real friendly. It's because I loved his music, and it was something. It was very easy to do. It was all done basically live, musicians in the studio, minimal overdubs. Right. It took about 2 weeks to do, which is almost unheard of nowadays. It takes 2 weeks to just get the band tuned up in the studio.
What was your first gold LP? Was that it?
No, it was the first gold LP I had was Ronnie Milsap Live, which was recorded in 1976 at the Grand Ole Opry House, and Ralph Emery was the master of ceremonies on that album, and it was with the first band that I had, first touring band. It had a gentleman named Steve Holt was playing drums, black drummer, good friend of mine, and a lot of gold and platinum since then.
How many number of ones were on that album?
We only had 1 single out of that album as well. Only 1 single called Let My Love Be Your Pillow. Out of that. Today, they release 5 or 6 or 54 singles out of 1 album. It only has 9 songs, but they'll release 54 singles in spite of themselves.
I read where it was almost like a song made a big career change for you.
It did. It was the first record to really cross and be prominent on the pop charts, on the adult contemporary. It was really interesting that up until that point, most people, unless you were an avid country music follower, most people didn't really know exactly where I'd been, what I'd done. But almost like a song, really, it changed a lot of things for me. It made a lot larger audience. It increased the audience of people who would come and listen to to the concerts. How
did it feel to be accepted by a new audience like when you crossed over to the pop charts?
Oh man, it was great. We all want to be accepted, and we all want to be patted on the back for what we do, you know.
Yes, sir.
So it was great, Herb.
Hey, tell me about this NBA commercial you just did.
Well, we did that late last spring, right toward the end of the season. Some friends of mine, and one works with me, Billy Corin, I think whom you've spoken with.
Okay, sure. Sure.
It had been mentioned about these announcements that are being shown that go along with the NBA.
Right.
And the folks in Charlotte with the Charlotte Hornets, that franchise has done extremely well over there. They pack that Coliseum every time the Hornets play over there. And they called and wanted to know if I'd come over and do that. We did, and came over and did some things specifically for the Charlotte Hornets, and some more some other things for NBA in general, more generic for the NBA in general. I think they're going to be showing those this fall, I understand.
Okay.
It's kind of nice, you know. They got Elton John, and who else they got? They got Bill Cosby, and a mighty good company.
You were doing pretty good there.
Yeah.
Tell us about your new album with Patti LaBelle and John Hyatt and the Harlem Boys.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
That's the new album. We've cut about 17 sides. We don't exactly know what's going to comprise this album yet, but I'm starting to mix next week. And as you mentioned, I've done a duet with Patti LaBelle on this album. I've done one of the songs with the Boys Choir of Harlem, which is a song called "Spare the Rod and Love the Child," which musically and lyrically really makes a strong statement, Herb. It's real hard, tough for kids growing up nowadays. It's in today's, you know, the way the world is today.
It is. You got
and this song talks about that, and it addresses that. And as you mentioned, John Hyatt, a good friend of mine, is playing on this album. Mark Knopfler from Dire Straits is on this album. It's kind of just an effort to make the definitive Ronnie Milsap album and not really be concerned about categorization.
That's great.
So that's what we've done, and we hope to have it finished. It should be for release early next year.
Woman in Love. Say a few words about that one.
Yeah, Woman in Love, off this last album, and was one of the most successful records off the last album.
Wow.
In fact, it was #1 for, I don't know, 5 or 6 weeks in a row on a lot of the charts, and it was there again done with a lot of machine technology as opposed to real musicians. Houston Solution, it's a waltz, and you know, when Ernest Tubb sung about waltz across Texas, I don't think we'll ever get over that, so we always keep trying to come up with something kind of similar, you know, and Houston Solution kind of fits all that.
Tell me about the Ronnie Milsap Foundation for the Blind.
Yes, this foundation was founded in June of 1985, Herb, specifically in 3 areas for students who do not have the means to go on to college. We offer scholarships for students who qualify to go on to college, and we offer money in the area of eye research at the Duke Eye Center in Durham and at the Kresge Eye Center in Detroit. And the third area is rehabilitation of the adult blind, because a lot of them need to be retrained in order to be able to get a job, because maybe the training that they had, maybe it doesn't really apply in today's job market, or maybe, you know, especially there again in training for computer jobs or things that kind of jobs. There's a lot of data entry and things like that that a lot of adult blind can do. So those are the 3 areas that we've tried to address.
How about the Twitty Milsap Sturban Foundation?
Yes, that is all. It's really all rolled into one now. Yes, with my friends Conway Twitty and Richard Sturban. Yes, all of Nashville.
It's all basically the same then.
Yes.
And before I let you go, tell me about some awards you've won. You cleaned them up.
Well, I've been very fortunate.
Yes, sir.
I've been very lucky over the years.
6 Grammys?
6 Grammys. All kinds of awards.
Entertainer of the Year.
From CMA, all kinds of awards from those folks, and from the Academy of Country Music. And
what was the most unusual award that you can recall? Anything unusual?
Well, the one that really was the most surprising to me You see, I lived in Georgia for a while. When I was in Atlanta, I went to school there for a few years, trying to decide if I wanted to go into Emory University and go to law. And during that, I don't know, about 4 or 5 years, well, close to 6 years, I guess, by the time I met my wife there, and we've been married close to 25 years. But they awarded me an award just a couple of weeks ago into the Georgia Music Hall of Fame.
Wow.
And that was the most unexpected, surprising thing that happened. They called me, they asked me if I'd come down, and I did, and I sang a couple of things on the show, and it was a total surprise to me. So, you know, I don't know, they're just, this business has been so good to me. And I think, you know, it's being around people all the time.
Great, isn't it?
It is, and that's the one thing that
you make us feel so good all over.
I
know.
Because I'm gonna go out in a little bit and sing here at Valley Forge, and hopefully, if the chemistry works the way that we hope it does, this live performance thing and being with people and doing this it's always been my dream.
Ronnie, I want to thank you for being my guest on the show.
Herb,
it's
thank
a
you.
pleasure,
It's a real pleasure to visit with you. And
yes, sir.
Thank you for having me on, sir.
My pleasure, sir. And this is Herb Sudden. Until next time, keep smiling, keep it country.
That's right.